I passed the certification, but I almost failed, and here is the scary part: there was no domain that I bombed. No gap that I can point and say study that harder. It was 2 or 3 soft answers in one of 4 domains, quietly stacking up until I was bad guess from retaking it. And I'll show you exactly how close at the end. That's the trap with the CBA. It doesn't fail you with one brutal section. It bleeds you in a couple points everywhere you were pretty sure instead of certain. Familiarity feels like it's enough, but it's not. Don't repeat my mistake. This is the workflow I wish I had before I sat down. Every domain where the points actually are and the spots were close enough quietly costs you the certification. Other CNCF certs test you on the operating something, but CBA tests you on the understanding of the framework. Here is no kubectl, no cluster to fix, and no YAML to apply in a terminal. It's a 60 multiple choice question exam and you get 90 minutes to do them. The wrong answer is built to catch you if you learn the backstage by osmosis, by touching a running instance at work rather than by actually reading how it works. That's a real trap. If you deploy backstage or used it daily, you might feel confident going in, but you might not be. The exam asks precise questions, not have you used backstage or not, but it asks, do you understand exactly how the catalog, the plugin system, and the deployment model work? For domains, here's where the points actually are. Customizing backstage is at 32%, that's the biggest chunk. The frontend plugin, backend plugin, how React code is structured in app.tsx, and the material UI. If you understand how plugins are built and where they run, this domain is winnable. Backstage development is at 24%. 3 commas, TypeScript compilation steps, and the Docker build pipeline. It's straightforward if you have studied it. Easy to underestimate if you haven't. Backstage infrastructure and backstage catalog are 22% each. Infrastructure is PostgreSQL versus the PostgreSlite, CNACs and cache backends. Catalog is entity kinds, annotations, and ingestion mechanisms. The catalog section is a trap. It's 22%, which feels small, but it's where the subtle distinction live. What actually happens when the entity fails to ingest? You can walk in with I think I know and lose points fast. The central question in this domain is what is a front-end plugin versus a back-end plugin. Front-end plugins are the React components. They run in a browser, they register the routes, they appear in a sidebar. They communicate with the back-end plugins over the HTTP. Backend plugins are independent microservices. They are server-side. They own the database connections. They expose the REST or GraphQL API. The exam asks where the code runs, how plugins are registered, and what app.tsx does. App.tsx is not magic and it wires plugins together. If you never opened the app.tsx in a real backstage app, spend 20 minutes with it before the exam day. Material UI is the UI library, not the Tailwind, not ShadCN, MUI. The exam expects you to know this is the standard. Also know the extension points, how model hooks into the existing plugin without forking them. This is the part of the newer backend system, it comes up. Postgres is for the production and SQLite is for the development only. The exam will offer you answer where SQLite is presented as a production ready, but it's not. Know this code. The backend uses the CNACs. Each plugin gets its own logical database. Cache backends are in scope, memory, Redis, and memcache. Know which you'd use in real deployment and why. The entity descriptor format is tested directly. Know every kind: component, API, system, group, user, and resource. Know the difference between the metadata annotations, which are structured, well-known meanings, and metadata labels, arbitrary key-value pairs. The well-known annotation backstage IO THOPS-ref tells TechDocs where to find docs. GitHub.com project Slack links to the source repository. These appear in the questions. Entity ingestion troubleshooting is the part I underestimated. Why does an entity not appear after you register it? Invalid YAML of wrong API version, missing required fields, processing error in catalog backend. All of these are in scope. There are 3 commands that matter: the npx backstage create app, the yarn dev, the yarn build, and yarn build image. Know what each one does? Bootstrap creates the monorepo scaffolding, yarn dev creates the both frontend and backend together, and yarn TSC compiles TypeScript separately from building the Docker image. The exam asks where each step fits in the pipeline. I'm not certain this section has changed since I sat on the exam, but Backstage releases frequently. But the dev workflow fundamentals have been stable across the versions. During the preparation, I would say that you should do official Backstage docs first, the architecture review, catalog descriptor format page, and plugin development guides. Dense but precise, about 6 hours across those 3 sections. The Linux Foundation material is free and it covers the exam material at the right depths. I went through it on one sitting and it took me maybe 3 hours. It's better than most third-party courses because it's written by people who actually work on a Backstage. What didn't work for me, assuming that Kubernetes knowledge would transfer. The YAML looks familiar, but the concepts are different. Backstage entities are not Kubernetes resources. They share a syntax pattern, but nothing else. I caught myself applying the Kubernetes mental models to catalog questions and had to actively stop. The biggest mistake was subtler. I studied for familiarity, reading each doc until it felt familiar and then moved on. Familiar is not the same as precise. On the exam day, the questions were specific enough that I've seen this wasn't enough. I needed to know exactly. That gap, a couple of soft questions per domain, is what nearly sunk me. If I did it again, I'd drill each domain until I could answer from memory, not just recognize the topic. Don't do what I did. Here's the resources you can use for the preparation. I would highly encourage you to go through the free Linux Foundation course. And also I left the links on the official documentation for you. So how close was close? I got 80 out of 100 and it was the first attempt, passing score is 75. 5 points of margin and there was no single domain to blame for the gap. It was soft answers scattered across all 4 domains. Tighten each domain from the familiar to a certain and the same exam is comfortable pass instead of the nail beater for you. But I got 15 CNCF certs in total. This one was one of the last exams on my golden Kubastronavt track. The exam is fair, the docs are generally good and you don't need perfect, you just need precise. There are practice tests that I built from the sources I just described. If you want to check your gaps before you book the exam, start there.